Hello, hello. Jenna, we can't hear you.
Okay, we can hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, excellent. Good afternoon. Welcome to the first installment of the REAL-ATIONSHIPS Series. And we will be talking about female platonic relationships. So thank you guys so much for being here. I know people will trickle in as they get a chance, but we do want to be able to start on time so that we can finish on time. I want to honor your time and the fact that you guys have been here or showed up here on time. So I'll go through just a few things off the bat and then we will just chat. It's quite informal. I want you guys to feel free to give your input, ask your questions, answer the questions, ask each other questions. Um, and you can throw your videos on so we can see your beautiful faces and so on, and yeah, and we'll sort of just give ourselves a chance to be free and maybe talk about this phenomenon that is quite important and it can have such a positive impact on our lives. So um I'll just be making sure to check in with the chat and whatnot to hopefully make sure everybody's comments are are honored. But feel free again to turn on your mics and just chat. So for those of you who do not know me, I am Genevieve. I'm a registered psychotherapist in the city of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I've been doing counseling for a good amount of time now, and relationships are what the business of therapy is all about. And relationships has always been part of, just sort of my focus, creating connections, intimacy, and really healthy quality relationships. That's been part of my passion for. It seems like all my life, but there was certainly a season there where I didn't enjoy um, those kinds of connections and relationships, and so just putting effort and time and intentional thought into creating and cultivating those relationships has become a passion of mine. And so this is right up my alley. I love relationships. I love talking real talk about them, and especially relationships between women. One, because I am a woman, and Black women because I am a Black woman, um, and also because I've heard so many adverse narratives as it pertains to women and friendship and relationship and connection with one another. And there's this sort of like overarching type of like thing where it's like drama, it's catty. I've heard a lot of what countless women say, oh, I don't keep friends with other women because there's too much drama. It's too, and I'm like, whoa. And that hasn't been my experience. So it's just a contrasting experience, but I've experienced so much joy and satisfaction and beauty in my life from my relationships, especially with other women, that I thought this conversation would be really cool to sort of launch out with, so we can um, just kind of talk and listen and share with one another. Explore some of those social and power dynamics and sort of socio-normative ideas and constructs about female platonic relationships. So I'll go through slides. There's not that many. Ask questions and answer, and there will be a lot of questions. So we'll talk about them as we go along. So I wanted to start off with a few definitions, or maybe ground us in a framework, so we understand sort of where I'm coming from, because I know not everybody comes from the same place. So this is a quote by one of my favorite authors, Brene Brown. She says, "Connection is why we're here. We are hardwired to connect with others. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives, and without it, there is suffering." So here she comes from a psychological background, social work background, and she is an author and a speaker. And I think her TED Talk is probably one of the top 10 TED Talks on um, on that platform. But here, basically, she's saying we're created for relationship, and um, you know, a lot of times when we're growing up, we don't necessarily learn intentionally or in a focused way about how to cultivate relationships. We go to school, we learn math and so on, but out of our organic experiences of being in school or being at daycare or what have you, we learn to do relationships, especially in our families of origin. Um, and so we learn different rules and we learn to react in certain ways to certain things. If we come from a family that sort of sweep things under the rug, we learn to do that. Or if we come from a family who's very like private and keeps, the image looking perfect, we tend to do that. And that's how we tend to show up in relationships. And then we tend to construct our ideas about relationship in those ways, with those messages and with those learnings. So fundamentally, Brene is saying, hey, relationships are the essence of who we are and how we live and how we thrive. And then, of course, she's not the only one. Um, and this is, I mean, I ground myself in a biblical and Christian framework, or worldview, if you will. And so the Bible says, and there's just two scriptures here I want to read. God saw all that He made, and it was very good, right? And so I'm a creationist in this new most postmodern terminology. Um, and so God created the earth, and so He said God created the earth, and He said all that He made was good. And then in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, the Lord God said, "It is not good." So this is the only thing that is not good, for the man to be alone. And so again, we see us grounded in this idea of human beings created for the purpose of doing relationship. So relationship is fundamental to our purpose, to our existence, um, and to our beingness. Right? It's how we express our the essence of who we are. Okay, our identities, and all that good stuff. So uh, I wanted to ground ourselves in that, just with that idea that human beings are created for relationships. So platonic friendships are a type of relationship. So when we get into this, we're going to look at five things very quickly. We're going to look at construct of friendship. So I'm going to be asking you guys questions about your ideas, what's in your mind as it relates to friendship. Interesting numbers, just a few stats that I thought were cool that I thought we could, take a look at and maybe talk about. Some barriers, things that hold us back from creating the thing that we are created to do, right? So building healthy friendships and so on. And then some narratives that are popular that I'm sure you all have heard, and maybe you can share some of your own. And then I have a personal challenge for us all as we leave today, because at the end of the day, we want to take some kind of substance as we reflect and as we collaborate, right? And then, of course, I'll look at giving you a heads up on what's coming next week, and we can ask each other any questions that might have come up throughout our chat today. So here, as we start, this is actually my favorite slide, guys. So these are my constructs as it relates to friendships, and especially female platonic friendships. Okay, so I grew up 80s, 90s, and so on. And so I grew up with these television shows. I don't know. You guys can shout me out if you know any of them. You can throw it in the chat, or you can just turn your mic on, and let me know if you know any of these shows. Some of them are older and some of them are newer. So you can shout me out and let me know if you know what they are. Does anybody know any of these?
Living single,
Yep.
girlfriends.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same. I don't know if I know the other ones, but living single and girlfriends for sure.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So that's from like my era, so to speak. The other ones are actually a little bit newer. Um, And so this one with the Auburn background here with the four ladies sitting down, that's actually Tyler Perry's new sitcom, Sistas. Sistas. The gal them travel stories, yes, man. So that's the top right corner right there. Us four, that's me and my girls in all in white. And of course, I have my girlfriends here, and this has been my dream, and ideal since I was younger. I grew up thinking, hey, we have to have like a girl group with like four young ladies doing a do, whether we're traveling, we're going out to eat, we're crying together, we're doing life together. That was my construct. And this was actually last month when my girlfriends came down to visit, and we've been able to build this awesome, wonderful, fruitful relationship, similar to like the living single and the girlfriends. The top left corner there is Harlem, which is another newish or newer sitcom within the last couple of years. I think it came out in 2021 was the first series, and then, oh, sorry, the first, what's it called, season. And then the bottom left corner there is Run the World, which I think is sort of like an offshoot of Living Single. The creator, writer of Living Single actually brought sort of that idea into 21st century and reshaped it for our millennial generation. But the purpose and premise of all of these shows and all of these images is to project an unpopular um, ideal or construct or narrative or storyline of Black women, and women. So I say Black woman because I'm a Black woman. I want to speak from my perspective, but also women, um, on television, in media, and so on, that reflects real life. And so we do have a what I would say is maybe a skewed amount, to the right of images on television of Black women that are not in line with this ideal or with this construct. So a lot of like cattiness, a lot of backbiting, a lot of um, drama, a lot of like lies, a lot of like men and relationship like weird stuff like cheating and just weird stuff like, and that becoming like a normalized ideal of relationships between Black women. And I see that a lot on television, and I'm sure you guys could name a lot of the reality television shows that depict sort of those unhelpful and unhealthy, I believe, images of um, female relationships, especially between Black women. But these were this was the image and the construct that I grew up with, right? And we look at platonic relationships, and I know I come from a heteronormative perspective or lens, and so we do, of course, have now a lot of the um, sort of the pseudo sexuality, sort of less heteronormative. We have a lot of um, introduction into mainstream that looks at the blurred lines, so to speak, when it comes to sexuality, introducing sexuality to platonic relationships between females. But we're looking at platonic love, which is the like sexual desire and romance and romantic features are non-existent, right? And so that's what we're looking at in terms of friendship, right? And the definition, that state of like enduring affection and esteem and intimacy and trust between people that all cultures really do embody and are able to enjoy. It goes beyond, of course, the color or the gender, color, nationality, all the lines of the ism. So these are my questions to you. Just we can take a moment just to share and just think about like what your sort of learnings have been as it relates to relationships, the platonic relationships, especially friendships. Um, like, what's your working definition? What do you actually do now? Or what did you do before? What is sort of the value and purpose that you place on female platonic friendships? I have so many questions in my head. Uh, um, yeah, like what kind of friend do you want to be? Have you even thought about this? What kind of friend do you want to have? Have you thought about it? Like, what's sort of how did you sort of learn friendship? Who's chatting? Uh-oh, did I miss somebody? Somebody? Hello. Somebody had their mic on, but I couldn't hear you. Feel free to jump in, guys. You guys are quiet today. Was that too many questions at once?
No, that wasn't. It was okay. I can say for me, similar to you, I've had very positive experiences with female relationships. Like they've been pretty foundational to my life, my identity, outside of like Christ, but formulating your identity, feeling safe, being able to grow, explore. So like those are foundational things. Like I have a core set of friends I've known for over 30 years, almost 40 years, really. And we've grown together. Like, I mean, obviously you have experiences here and there that might be deemed as negative, but for the most part, growing past those experiences has cultivated a stronger foundation, I feel, for us. So I can't really say I've had like super negative experiences with females. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents. But yeah, I've had really good experiences. We're friends, you know what I mean? It's just been really enriching, I guess, to my life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Thank you, Zav. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, absolutely. Simone says reciprocating encouragement and support to other females in my circle. So that's your working definition of friendship. And Zabs is talking about like growing up, having these experiences allowed you to shape your understanding of what friendship was like. The majority of the experiences tends, of course, to have us lean towards, a particular side. Oh, female friendships and platonic relationships are really great because they add and enhance my life. And in spite of, any, negative experiences or or hurtful or trying challenging experiences has edified and encouraged and enhanced my my development. So your working definition internally hasn't necessarily come through intentional thought and sort of down, what's my definition of friendship? It has been through your experiences, right? And what you've actually done in the relationships, and so your value comes from that. But yeah. So anybody else, sort of thinking about where they got some messages about friendships? What were you told? How were you taught? I know when I was growing up, I was told not to talk about like my business. Don't tell nobody your business. I was told that a lot when I was a child growing up, especially when I started going to. I was probably like 6 years old. I started going to the community center for community center programs, and it was like, don't tell nobody your business. Don't tell nobody where you live. Don't tell nobody nothing. Like it was keep everything to yourself. And and that really hindered my capacity to connect with other people and to create friendships. So essentially I was kind of told like not to create friendship with other people. I know it came from a place of protection, and so on, but yeah, those are some some words I noticed, um, that I heard. Any other definitions out there that you guys can think of, or maybe your family experience, that kind of thing, that you guys want to share? Your thoughts, ideas. I keep hearing something, but I don't know if you're trying to say something and not working or what's
I'm not
happening.
sure if that was on my side. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, so maybe this isn't exactly a definition, but on reflecting where I kind of picked up my ideas about friendship and what friendship should look like. I definitely remember growing up, my mom having a really close group of girlfriends as well that she really valued, and they had stayed in touch since college or since high school, and had been in each other's lives even after immigrating to like different countries, different cities. And so I think that really
Yeah.
painted a cool picture for me to say, like, okay, some of the people that I'm meeting now and that I'm connecting now can be in my life forever, even if we don't talk all the time or get a chance to see all the time. It's not about convenience, it's about like intention and like investment into the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hear like that working definition coming from a place of lived experience and modeling. So what you saw your mother modeling in terms of her connections with other women and the longevity with which she kept those relationships going, and just being able to see her engage in the quality of those relationships over time. Yeah, definitely not about the like we talk every day and go out for lunch every day, but like when we are able to connect, we do connect, and we also make it a point to commit to keep connecting. um there's quality there, there's beauty there, there's sharing there, there's healthiness there, um that you were able to see. So yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for sharing. So we had sort of our definitions coming out of this organic space, our definitions coming out of modeling and what we saw, and then our definitions also coming out of media, and what we looked at in terms of imagery. um Also found, sorry, I was going to throw in your comment, foundational values of my close friendship. Yeah, absolutely. Genuineness, honesty, integrity, love, celebration, and honor. Oh my goodness, so beautiful. Yes. So these are the things that you fundamentally saw as necessary to your relationship, to your friendships, to those platonic connections, right? And so if there was a chance for you to cultivate these things, there was a move towards. And when those things weren't present, there was likely a move away from the interaction or the connection or the person. So yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I kind of skipped over that question, but the value and purpose of platonic relationship and friendship, um, yeah, for me definitely came from my understanding of my emotional space. So like feeling good around someone was sort of what I use as my value system, right? And so for me, the purpose of having friends, like I mean, we grew up with Polka Dot Door and Today's Special and all the things, but in those shows, what I saw was people like smiling, having fun, playing, and so the value for me of friendship. Sorry, the purpose of friendship was for me to have fun and to play and to sort of feel good, and so the value that I placed in it was high because I always wanted to, be playing and feeling good. Um, but some of the things that I knew I wanted to be part of my friendship was, I'm sorry, that sense of like, sort of mutual support, um, mutual living, like living with someone, like doing life along with someone, whether it was like playing or doing homework or, talking about boys. I remember when I was in grade school, I used to write like 4-page letters to my girlfriends about like what was going on in my day. Like we went to the same school. Did we have that much to talk about? No, but we'd be writing and passing notes and all that kind of stuff in school, just about like life. Oh my goodness, I'm sitting down beside, oh, Christopher sat down beside me today. He's wearing jeans. Oh my goodness. You know what I mean? Just silly stuff. But that was my idea of what friendship was, like living alongside people just in the daily excitement, in the celebrations, in the mundane, in the sadness, in the frustrations and the challenges, in the hating of the teachers and the hating of the homework, everything. So yeah, definitely purpose and value coming out of those spaces. So just a couple of stats that I thought would be interesting. And as a therapist, of course, I do the business relationship all the time. Um, but a lot of a lot of what I realized when I first started out in this field was that a lot of people that came to therapy didn't have friends. They didn't have a strong support system, especially women. And when they didn't feel like they had friends that they could uh, trust or friends that would support them, their outcomes and their emotional states were significantly challenged. Like um, their outcomes for therapy, one, it just took longer, and then their emotional states were more significantly impaired. So these were some stats that I thought you could just sort of take away and ponder. 28%. So this was a study done by I think it was Peanut in 2021. They did a survey over 50,000 women, and so they came up with these statistics from their study, the research study. So 28%, and of course this was self-report, 28% have one or no friends they feel they can fully trust. So this is having friends, but not friends that you feel as though you can be real with. You can't tell them like the real stuff that's going on in your life. You kind of stay surface. 52% have 3 to 5 close friends, and that being the ideal for most people, right? Feeling the most satisfied with 3 to 5 close friends. So that's like the inner circle. You know, we have like friends on the periphery, friends who are close but not super close, and then 3 to 5 who are really close. And then on average, 20% of respondents considered their friendship strained due to life changes and commitment. So when they changed jobs, when they moved to different areas for work or what have you, and then of course when they had children or became married, those life changes or transitions and new commitments put a strain on their friendships. Overall, the findings were that we are healthier and, of course, less susceptible to mental health issues like depression, anxiety, addiction, when we have quality friendships and we are cultivating them over our developmental stages. And so, I mean, it doesn't take a genius for sure to know that, but to say it out loud and just to sort of sit with that truth, um, is, I think, is just a valuable sort of privilege for us, right? We're healthier and less susceptible to depression or anxiety or mental health issues and so on when we have quality relationships in our lives, and specifically platonic friendship for women. Um, and so, and I bear witness to that for sure. Without the numbers, without the studies, without the findings, my lived experience bears witness to that. And I'm sure a number of us here as well have had a very similar lived experience. Um, and so I want to talk about maybe some of the things that you have or we have seen or felt or talked about, you know, just in our own spaces as it pertains to barriers. And then we're going to talk about um, sort of creating new norms in our relationships. So a barrier, very, very, very simple definition, is a thing that stops you. So I'm wondering if in any of, you know, your experiences, if there's been a time where you found something to be hindering you or stopping you from entering into this, you know, healthy sort of platonic relationship space with other women. Like internally, if there's anything that was stopping you, externally, if there's anything that was stopping you, um, you know, if it's ever been difficult for you to be friendly or to make friends, um, or even to identify um, safe people. I know I had a conversation about that the other day with someone, just being able to recognize, you know, safe people in our lives and move towards connecting with them. Um, and even being a safe person. I you know, I didn't talk about that, but just being a safe person, like the kind of person um, like you would want to be friends with, like becoming the kind of person that you would want to be friends with. And I'm thinking about all these, you know, questions. Um, but yeah, really sort of wondering if there's been any sort of hindrances or weird stuff that you guys have experienced that you wouldn't mind sharing. I invite you to share. And of course, is this even important to you? Is it even important to talk about this? That's even, I guess, maybe a fundamental question about this whole topic. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback.
Um, I would say it's really important to talk about, one. And two, for me, I've found as I transitioned into a different role, being a wife, being a mother, that sort
Mhm.
of um, that sort of situation,
Yeah.
it kind of inhibits the ability to just freely, and you know, meet people at your whim and kind of just do different things because obviously your role has changed and you have other responsibilities.
Yeah.
This one, that's your cousin. So you have other, other things that you have to do. That okay, all right. I didn't invite you to do that, but that kind of prevent you from naturally being in natural spaces where you might find people that you have, can connect with in that way. Like you have to be super, super intentional about it, and you may not have the capacity to do it. So I think that has been an effect. Other times it's just been like plain old like insecurities. Like you're in a space and maybe you just don't feel like you feel like you have like a little bit of an imposter syndrome or something where you're like, I don't know if I'm really up to, I don't know, like I'm in this space, these people seem great or not, right? And I just don't feel like I can really relate to them, right? And I find that I'm a bit of an introvert, so maybe it takes me longer to kind of relate to people, and small talk is a thing. So you know what I mean? So those sort of people become inhibitors.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of brings up another question, like where, I mean, as you, of course, transition into different aspects of life, like where do we meet friends, and and do we even try to, like, do we want to meet new friends? Is it a thing, to sort of reach out, or to intentionally try to find ourselves in environments where we can, meet new friends? Um, yeah, just sort of, thinking about that as you describe, sort of what might be a barrier, like just finding ourselves in certain spaces with similar peoples, with similar interests, and then our insecurities, sort of being stirred up. Like, how do we do this thing? I find that proximity growing up was very fundamental to cultivating friendship. Like, I was friends with the people at the community center I went to. I was friends with my people at school. I was friends with the people at church at the church that I attended. I was friends with the girls on the basketball team. Um, and then it was only over time that I chose which friendships I was going to maintain, based on fundamental values. So I just sort of think, like, if we were to make friends or to be intentional about making friends now, like what would that even look like? You know. Anyway, thinking out loud. Your feedback, your thoughts, your shares. What has sort of been in the way for you, or or is this even important to think about or talk about, or have you thought about it or talked about it? Well, like at work or eating or okay. Well, you guys can throw your comments in the chat. I don't hear anybody sort of jumping in. Um, but yeah, just making sure that we recognize um, there are real barriers that we have faced, and um, just sort of to um, give ourselves language to describe some of the things that have hindered us from enjoying the kinds of relationships that can be really refreshing for our lives, to acknowledge them, and to also recognize that we can overcome them, right? So when it comes to um, maybe spaces that we're not sure we belong in, or we fit into, managing those insecurities can be helpful so that we can connect with people. And the reality is that we desire to connect. We are created and designed to connect. We're hardwired to connect, and despite sometimes our hurts and our insecurities and our past experiences, um, it's quite possible for us uh, to revisit the platform of cultivating healthy platonic, and quality platonic relationships with other women. So, um, when it comes to our lived experience, if we haven't had a model, let's say, or we haven't watched these great television shows like I used to watch, or we didn't have friends and family or parents or church sisters and brothers to encourage us, to be friends, and to have friendships, that we can still enjoy these relationships as we move forward in life. And that's what I want to talk about next, right? Just being able to come into contact with new norms, new ideas, new constructs, new narrative as it pertains to relationship, um, and and acknowledge some of how we have hindered ourselves, and maybe allowed those barriers to become um, like hardcore walls, as opposed to, just sort of lines that we can blur and change and shift, or boundaries that we can um, manipulate over time. So this is my idea, and this comes from, of course, not necessarily my head, but from my years of experience, and then as a human, and also my readings and research. So even as I've been thinking about this topic, just looking at the things that help us to, and they require a certain level of, um, I would say, courage, and courage is one of them. But um, the things that can help us to really move into this space where we adopt a mentality that um, female platonic relationships are helpful to us, and that they're worth the work. Um, and so, new norms in relationship. One of my questions here: why don't you have friends? How were you hurt in relationship? What are your thoughts about friendships as you age? Yeah, so those are sort of the hard hitting questions. Um, but wanting to know, from you guys, like, if you if you think you're a good friend, so to speak, um if you have maintained friendship the way you've wanted to, um, you know what uh what has been present for you there. I don't know. I'm thinking about what normal things. I think Zab's mentioned her values there, like genuineness, like these sort of qualities that you look for in friendships. And wondering if you guys, sort of have any other things that are normal for your friendships. Any thoughts? You guys can jump in anytime, anytime. Hold on.
Sorry, I was typing it in the chat. um, but yeah, I think that in general, I'm a good friend, but I can definitely see certain relationships where I can be more present in, and like
Mhm.
a little bit more consistent across the board. But there are
Mhm.
other relationships that are, I guess easier for me to show up. So I'm a lot more consistent in those relationships.
Mm, yeah, yeah. All right. So maybe I wonder with that, like, what does make it easier to show up in the relationships where you tend to um, find yourself being more consistent?
That's a good question. I think maybe it's like because of a level of understanding between myself and the other party, that there's
Hmm.
less concern on my like understanding of who we are as individuals. So there's less area for or less opportunity for misunderstandings or miscommunications because I just understand how that person thinks and speaks, and that person understands how. So there's I don't want to say less work because every relationship requires work, but it's just I feel like I have to explain myself less in those particular relationships. And also like there's less internal dialogue that goes on with those particular relationships also, if that makes any sense, because I don't have certain worries about whether they understood me or not.
Yeah, yeah. So I heard you say, a couple of times the understanding word, and so I'm wondering about the value of for you of being understood. So that's like fundamental to being in relationship, being in quality, healthy, like enjoyable relationship with other people. There's an element of being understood that you really you really want to have, and that makes it easier, less work, less internal dialogue, less explanations, and so on. It makes it easier for you to be present and consistent. Like you want to be there more. You want to be there because you're understood more, right? And that is so fundamental to our relationships. I think it was, what's his name? Is it Dan Dale Carnegie? I can't remember. One of the best-selling books of all time. He has a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Um, and I think one of his points was uh I wonder if I took that. I don't know if I took that down. Um, it was listen to understand as opposed to respond. And there's something that happens when we experience people listening to us, like listening to our heart, listening to the things that are in between the lines, listening to our emotions, like just listening to us. So I hear that being a place of like genuine connection for you. Um, and yeah, thank you so much for that. Anybody else, sort of your thoughts on what needs to be present um in a relationship for you? And I have like 5 tenets, so jump in.
For me, related to this question, but also goes together with one of the questions on the slides of how my thoughts on friendships have changed over time as I've aged and matured. It's like when we're younger, a lot of times the purpose or our approach to friendship is very much about like fitting in and how
Mhm,
do these people see me and how can I be what they want me to be in
mhm,
certain ways? And over time, a lot of times it becomes more about like, who am I when I'm with them? Do we have the mutual support and encouragement? Who are the people that like see all of who I am and support all of who I am? Yeah, so that's one thing that came to mind. And the second thing was just how friendships can ebb and flow and have different seasons.
yeah.
Sometimes you just see each other once a year. Sometimes, one of you is going through something and it's a season where you talk every day, and that's the best way to be there for each other. So, yeah, that's what came to mind for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, um, yeah, I hear you talking about the evolution of relationship, and or perhaps life stage, lifespan development of relationship. Um, but moving from the external focus to the internal focus, right? So, um, fitting in is like a what do they see me as? What do they need? What do they want? What are they going to approve of? How are they going to accept me? What are their standards? And trying to mold and shape the self to suit that or to fit that in some way. But of course, as we grow older and we mature and we become more uh, confident in ourselves and more knowledgeable of who we are, right? We become more autonomous and so on. We get it, and perhaps more self-aware. We get a sense of, authentically how we want to be and how we present. And it switches from, that um, will they accept me and what do they want and so on to that what you just described. Um, what was the question? Who am I when I'm with them? Right. So really internally focusing on, hey, are the things that I value present here, or am I behaving in ways that align with what I value and what I deem important in life. um yeah, so that switch from the external to the internal being a part of the evolution of building friendship. So it can change from, hey, I want to be friends and fit in with the people at in elementary school because that's where I go every day, to I'm going to join groups that are filled with people who are like-minded, and I'm going to create friendships that way. And even though I might go to work every day, I may not have friends that are like-minded at work, even though I spend the most time there. Um, but outside of that, I have a core group uh, that mirrors and reflects, the values that I uphold in my life. So yeah, definitely. And then I love the ebb and flow of like just understanding the ebb and flow and really being committed to um allowing that to be, right? And not like taking it personally and so on. So yeah, definitely. Thank you for that, for that feedback. Um, Someone put a comment in the chat. Following through, that's a big part of relationship development, acknowledging that there's strengths and weaknesses that play a role in the longevity of a relationship. Yeah, definitely. We bring, sort of our internal working models to the table as we form these relationships or these attachments, right? And we are going to be definitely um, strong in certain areas, and we will have a lot of areas where we need to continue to grow. um, and a lot of things can contribute to that, whether or not we've experienced trauma, or there's been lack of trust or what have you. There are going to be challenges that we have to personally face, and personally own up to, and decide whether or not we're going to allow this to be a growth opportunity, or like our cancel culture our ca- our cancel culture advises, just like cut them off, and move on with your life. It's toxic. Um, but yeah, just, and that was a complete slate. But um, but really, just taking a look at how we've decided we are going to be, and what we've decided we are going to have, at different levels and stages, and all of the considerations that we do need to take into account, as we move. Um, I just thought of something because I I was thinking about siblings and sisters, and I think part of, and I didn't actually think of this but before, but I was thinking as a sister of a brother. So I had an older brother, and that to me was a very different relationship. And I always thought to myself, like, I wish I had like an older sister. I wish I had sisters, right? um, because my brother didn't he treated me like a boy. I was like a boy. And, we kind of roughhoused and, played in the dirt, climbed trees and stuff. And I always thought, it'd be nice to have like a sister to, just sort of grow up with. Um, so yeah, I'm just sort of wondering if you guys have siblings, and maybe if that played a role in how you either engaged in relationships with other females. Um, I have friends that have sisters, and they say they don't need friends because they have sisters. And so being with their sisters, sort of took the place of having to create or build or invest much into platonic female relationships. So I don't know, maybe you guys can sort of think of what strategies you guys use to make friends, um, and if having siblings was significant in your need, or desire, for making friends. And let me make sure I'm going to be mindful of the time here. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? What do you guys think about that? I don't know.
To be on, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I actually don't know how I make friends. I kind of just, I just kind of hang around, and sometimes people just start talking to me, and then I respond, and then now we're friends. So I'm not quite sure how. I think that's pretty much what it is. I'm rarely the one to initiate a conversation, but if somebody speaks to me, then I'll find some sort of common ground, and we'll start to have a conversation. So usually friendships have been born out of some sort of commonality in terms of like, we go to the same church, or we work together, like situational, something like that. Or maybe if I go to like an event, it usually has to be something where I'm going to be there consistently so that we can build on stuff over time. So it's rarely like a one event and I met somebody at this and now we're like friends for life. It's usually something that somewhere that I go regularly, and we just build on conversation. And sometimes, like if I like a dress, a woman, if somebody smells good, or if somebody's wearing something that looks good, I'm compelled to tell you that you look amazing in your outfit. So sometimes that like connections can build from that, but usually it's we're together and I've been seeing you, hey, I like those shoes, and then we have conversation, and all of a sudden we're just friends now.
So letting it happen like organically, that's definitely a thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a strategy. I mean, the strategy is, hey, I'm going to show up and be in this space, be myself, and allow myself to be open to the connections that may arise. Yeah. Perhaps not an intentional strategy, but a strategy nonetheless that seems to have been working.
I think that's actually kind of true. I don't think we're intentionally going out and making friends. I think it just, like you said, it just happens naturally. You know, you're in a place, a social atmosphere, and there's a commonality that we both like the same thing. And from there, it kind of spirals, right? Like for my thing is, I like cycling. So, you know, if I strike up a conversation regarding cycling and someone's like, oh, yeah, I like that too. And then we're like, oh, the next step is, oh, we should do it together, you know? And then from there, a friendship is developed, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Mutual activities and interest. Yeah.
Mhm.
Dabs, you had something. I noticed you threw your mic on and you guys clashed for a
Oh,
second. I don't know if you
collided.
wanted to. Yeah.
I was gonna I was gonna speak on the sibling thing. So my sister, we just kind of had the same friend groups. Like we kind of, because we're close in age, we're like 2 years apart. So we ended up just kind of having a very similar, not that she doesn't have her own friends and out, but a very similar core friend group. So it's almost like we're just a bunch of sisters, almost the way we all grew up. And my blood sisters, and but you know what I mean. So it kind of became one big thing, and a lot of it was just organic. Like we went to the same church. Like the core group was like we kind of went to the same church. Not that we're all there now, but you know, and that we kind of grew from there. I mean, I do have some school friends or whatever, but a lot of it was organic. But some of it was actually intentional because I facilitated groups, so I had to kind of, you know, practice what I preached and learned how to have, you know, intentionally go out and speak and have relationship in sort of either professional or not, just, you know, intentionally connecting with people, right? So some of it was organic, some of it's you know, not manufactured, but like, you know, intentional, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. And manufactured, I think, is a great term because intentionality means that you have some kind of forethought about the plan um, that you're going to initiate so that connection or a quality relationship can happen. And I find it baffling because there's just not a lot of thought put into sort of relationships. We kind of are just like, you know, whatever happens happens, and you know, we're sort of like, oh, you know, chemistry and the feel and all that stuff. And I think there's beauty in that for sure, and there's value in that. But I also think that because we're created for relationship, that we can put extra time and effort into something that comes naturally to make it great. It's like if LeBron James didn't go to the gym every morning and shoot like 1,000 or 1,500, whatever foul shots, would he still be great? Probably. Would he be like the greatest? Maybe not. We don't know, right? Something comes naturally, but he makes it better. He enhances himself by continuing to intentionally plan for and practice that thing, that skill, that ability. And I believe that friendship, relationship, connection, attachment, intimacy, all the things, and these five core and fundamental qualities of friendship are are practicable, are habits that we can build, are skills that we can become stronger in, and that will enhance the quality of our relationship. So I threw out five here. Um, what is it? Vulnerability, courage, authenticity, empathy, and mindfulness. These are all soft skills and perhaps more connected to our emotional and mental space and perhaps our spiritual space. Um, but they all connect to our relational space. And I find that these are words that we can either viscerally connect to or we tend to shy away from. They can be polarizing, let's say. So I'm wondering which of these words sort of shot out for you, stood out for you when you saw them. What was the first or second word, and what did it elicit for you?
for me, vulnerability, it's so necessary, yet it's just this ongoing process of being willing to be vulnerable and allowing yourself also to have healthy boundaries. So it's always this balance. It's a very intentional, not that, I mean, all of these are very intentional, I think, but vulnerability is the one where people are just like, usually like, what does that really entail? But it's it's so necessary in order to have like genuine relationships, right? Like you gotta be able to put yourself out there and take a risk, right? So that's the one that kind of stood out to me because it's always this work in progress in process for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It definitely requires continued attention and practice. And I like that you drawing that contrast. There's a fine line between, vulnerability when it comes to setting boundaries, um, and sort of continued, you know, working it out. Like sharing and boundaries are sort of go hand in hand. And I think Brene Brown would say that courage and vulnerability actually go hand in hand because it takes courage to be vulnerable. And you can't have, of course, you can't have vulnerability without being courageous. So, anybody else? Any other thoughts? And I'll be mindful of the time because I do want to get us out of here. Yeah.
I agree. Vulnerability is it's huge. It's huge for me too, because I guess it's also, we look at it as, to me personally, I look at it as that's probably one of the barriers or the reasons why I really don't reach out, because you don't want to really put yourself out there,
Mhm.
And again, it's when you're doing it, you have to be you're intentional, like what what's, it's almost like a give and take. What are they going to think? You know what I mean? Oh, I don't want to,
Mhm.
or you use it as a barrier, you protect yourself. Oh, I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. So it can also be a hindrance at times, right? So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So fear requires courage, and vulnerability requires courage. Anyone else want to jump in real quick before I switch it up? All right. So maybe I'll just encourage us to keep these in mind as foundational skills. And I say skills because they are things that we can build, we can work towards. And like Sabrina said, it requires continued intentional thought and practice, right? And so it's always a work in progress, right? There's no place of arrival. We're just all together vulnerable, and we're all together courageous, and we're all together authentic. There's no destination, but it is an ongoing process. And just to be mindful um, of that as we go, offering ourselves grace and compassion when we need to, but also pushing and challenging ourselves to lean into these spaces if we do value and want to cultivate and create platonic friendships that are healthy in quality, and yeah, sort of model that and enjoy the benefits of that, which of course have to do with our quality of life and um, our health. So yeah. Um, Oh, I did have a slide on that. So I'll send this out to you guys. If you guys want to drop your email addresses into the chat, I'll send out the presentation just so you can revisit it and any of the slides that spoke to you, any of the questions that you want to reflect on. And I'll throw out a personal challenge in a minute. But this is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Um, Best-selling book, awesome. And I encourage us all to get it. I've read it probably a couple times, but a long time ago. So I encourage us all to get it. But I'll go through the tenets really quickly. Number one, become genuinely interested in other people. Number two, smile. Number three, remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. So call people by their names and remember their name. Number four, be a good listener. And that's a whole other talk when it comes to relationships. And we'll be talking about that in effective communication and cultivating affection and close connections in June. And then number five was talk in terms of the other person's interest. And number six was make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. So all of this comes from a place of sincerity and genuineness, right? If you genuinely want to connect, you will. And that's just real, right? And that means you have to do that for yourself first. You have to be real and genuine and desiring of connection with yourself, desiring of knowing for yourself, so that you can offer that, to others. Um, Personal challenge from me to you as we close, as we wind down today, um, to develop a philosophy of friendship, right? To and one that's intentional that you can speak to and speak of. I think a lot of how we've developed our ideas, again, have been very organic, but even just to take time to reflect and be introspective and gain some more salient awareness about how we came to this place of either being afraid of vulnerability so that we find it hard to connect with other people, or um, where we've been more intentional about, being open and friendly. And welcoming to other people in our space or in our lives and going beyond the surface, right? So developing our philosophy of friendship, the kind of friend we want to be, the kind of friend we want to have. That's my personal challenge to you as we wind down and close today. And then I want to invite you guys out next week. Invite a friend if you guys know males, men in your lives, your husband, your brothers, your friends. Um, we're going to talk about platonic male friendships, and I'm hoping to have um, a couple of really awesome men who have like mastered this art in and around the city, creating safe spaces for men to come and share, and the power in that. So yeah, next week's transformational conversation has to do with platonic friendships between men. And so again, you guys can come out and chat about it, and also invite your male friends and family members to be a part. And yeah, I would love your feedback. I think you guys have dropped your emails into the chat. And so I'll send you just a quick feedback, what is it called? Link, like a link to a little survey, just so you can offer feedback. So as we go, because we'll be doing this every week for the next 9 weeks, talking about different aspects of relationships. And this is just real talk. This is just us coming together, to pique our interest, pique our brains, ask ourselves questions, and really hone in on what we can do to improve relationships, to see different aspects of how relationships can be better, be tweaked, or what have you. But again, this is what we're created for, and so being intentional about looking into the different areas of it is fundamental to our growth, our development, and to our satisfaction. So yeah, any questions as we close? Or any last minute sort of thoughts that you guys want to share?
Thanks for having this this kind of forum, this platform. It's great, it does shed some light on your makes you really think about your friendships, and being intentional in developing your friendship skill, in other words. Yeah, thank you. And if you can, please send an overview, because I did miss the beginning because I was running around. Okay, so I kind of jumped on the tail end of it. Yeah, of the conversation. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
thank you. Good stuff.
I love the way you said that, friendship skill. I like that. Yeah, it is a skill. Any other thoughts before we jump off, guys? Oh, I have chat. Excellent convo. This is really good. Thank you, guys. Yes, absolutely. We'll send to you guys. Do I have your emails? Yes, I do. Emails. Awesome. Okay, great, guys. If there's no more questions or thoughts or feedbacks or what have you, I will see you all next week. Actually, you know what I will do? If you want to, if you don't want to, throw your email in the chat. I know sometimes we don't want to do that. I threw my email in the chat. So take that down, and then you can just send me a quick email, if anything, with your questions or thoughts or feedback. And then I'll send you the link directly, just so you can look back on what we've been talking about, as well as the slides. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the first installment of REAL-ATIONSHIPS, our relationship series. Thursdays at noon, join us for lunch. Bring some coffee and some tea and some pastries and all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next week. Have a great rest of the day. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.